The first Joker film was universally loved by everyone, and the long-anticipated sequel was, it was something. But love the sequel or hate it, the moral complexity of the characters in these films is very interesting. So today, we're ranking the Joker and Joker 2 characters from good to evil. Spoilers ahead. And as usual, we'll be starting with the most morally upright characters and working our way down. These are the good. And the gold medal of goodness has to go to little Bruce Wayne. He may only play a minor role, but given that he's a young, soon-to-be Batman, we couldn't leave him off the list. He really does just seem like a super polite kid, even having no issue with Arthur, a complete stranger stretching his mouth into a smile.
I'm just trying to make him smile.
But someone definitely needs to teach little Bruce the importance of stranger danger.
Remember, a stranger can mean danger. Now I know. And knowing is half the battle.
But knowing his eventual alter ego, I think it's safe to say he'll turn out just fine. Oh, and sorry about your parents, by the way. Taking the silver medal of good is Marianne Stewart, aka Joker's attorney. Miss Stewart has one remarkable quality that separates her from almost anybody else in this movie. She actually genuinely cares about Arthur Fleck. When the security guards refuse to give him or even share an umbrella in the pouring rain, she gives him her coat to warm him up, showing right off the bat that this lady is one of the few morally okay characters we're gonna see in the movie. Stewart takes all of Fleck's childhood trauma into account and makes a case for the idea that Fleck and Joker are two separate identities, believing that his alter ego is a result of that trauma. She works really hard to get Arthur the help he truly needs, which says a lot given how she's one of the few characters in universe to truly acknowledge how corrupt the justice system really is. The bronze medal of good has to go to Arthur's neighbor and love interest, Sophie Dumont. Sophie stands out as one of the very few characters who treats Arthur with genuine kindness. Her few scenes in which Arthur isn't writing her into his schizo-induced self-insert fanfiction show her treating him with respect and kindness, which sadly is a pretty rare thing to see in the movie. Alongside being a good neighbor, she's also a pretty good mother, which, fortunately for her, was more than likely a factor in Arthur sparing her life.
My little girl's sleeping in the other room.
She does later testify against Arthur, which is not a mark against her considering the fact that she was so frightened by his breaking and entering that she left the city entirely. But it's revealed that she never called the police after the incident, even knowing that Arthur's mom was straight up gossiping about him behind his back. And we can't forget about Arthur's former co-worker, Gary. This little guy, pun intended, but I say respectfully, is a former co-worker and friend of Arthur's. Being another person made fun of by society, Gary was definitely the most sympathetic of Joker's co-workers.
Hey, Arthur, I heard what happened. Sorry, mate.
In fact, he was the one who decided to visit Arthur to check in after hearing about his mother's death.
My mom died. Celebrating.
And unlike Randall, he didn't have any ulterior motives. By Arthur's own admission, Gary was the only one who was consistently and sincerely nice to him at work. And the feeling is mutual, since in the sequel, Gary tearfully recounts the fact that Arthur was the only one who never made fun of him at work. All that heartfelt sympathy makes him one of the more decent characters, and undeniably the most important character in the Joker cinematic universe. Next we have Garrity and Merc, the detectives who questioned Arthur about the subway murders, or at least tried to. While it was a bit insensitive to start interrogating Arthur when his mother was just hospitalized after a stroke, they're not callous people, just law enforcement workers trying to do their job and get to the bottom of a triple murder mystery. We can't really fault them for that, but maybe be more tactful next time. Question the wrong person like that and you'll get yourself killed. Oh, right. Next we have His Royal Highness Judge Herman Rothwax. And man, this dude really just wants a normal courtroom proceeding, which is not going to happen with the Joker. Despite dealing with one of the most utterly flamboyant, unapologetic criminals in Gotham's history, Rothwax does do his best to handle cases with some semblance of sensitivity and respect. Thankfully for him, that favorite clip of the ads where he gets bashed by a hammer was a fantasy of Joker's. The worst thing that happens to Herman in the movie is having his courtroom blown up and possibly dying as a result, which isn't really dodging a bullet, so I hope he's alright. And rounding out the good section, we have a quick mention of Alfred. Like Bruce, Alfred is a character most of the audience will be familiar with already, even if he's only a minor character in this particular movie. The iconic butler does a good job of watching over Bruce, immediately coming to his side when he notices Arthur doing whatever the heck that was. And with the good section wrapped up, we now move into more morally questionable characters. This is the gray area. The social worker Deborah is up first. She talks to Arthur occasionally throughout the first part of the first movie.
They're struggling, looking for work. These are tough times.
And I guess she gets credit for at least trying to help. But considering how Arthur expresses feelings like she doesn't truly listen to him, it seems like she's not doing a very good job. Which brings us to one of the second movie's antagonists, Harvey Dent. This guy is the prosecuting attorney in the case against Joker. While we can't possibly fault the guy for trying to get a proper sentencing for a quintuple murderer and psychopath, there's definitely an air of insensitivity around this guy. He just seems two-faced, but I just can't put my finger on it. So let's move on to Thomas Wayne. While he might initially seem like he's being set up as the main villain, he's not as bad as Arthur believes him to be, even if his hatred is sort of understandable.
Those of us who have made something of our lives will always look at those who haven't as nothing but clowns.
Yeah, he describes poor people as clowns and also assaults Arthur in a theater restroom, but we can understand his anger after Arthur showed up to his house and met his kid. But let's talk about the iconic host of the Murray Franklin show, Jimmy Fallon. Murray Franklin. A talk show host with a boatload of charisma, Murray represents everything Arthur wants to be. Beloved by friends and fans alike, and respected for who he is as a person. So when Murray made fun of his viral comedy clip on live TV, you can imagine it was a pretty brutal blow to Arthur's self-esteem.
No, I won't, Ma. I'm gonna be a comedian.
You should have listened to your mother.
As a result, when Arthur, hereafter known as Joker, makes an appearance on Murray's show, Murray becomes the victim of a brutal on-screen murder, which was one of the coolest scenes in the first movie. And despite Joker's now iconic words, I don't think he really got what he deserved here. Sure, Murray was a jerk, but that's kind of pretty much par for the course as far as a lot of celebrities go, especially in movies. Still, bringing Joker on really did seem like a thinly veiled attempt at bullying.
Knock, knock.
And you had to look that up?
So Murray really wasn't without sin. And rounding out the gray area, we have Arthur's former employer, Mr. Hoyt. It might be surprising to see this guy anywhere but the final category, given that he is pretty rude to his employees, at least from what we see. This is particularly true of Arthur, while Hoyt does claim to like him.
No, don't sit. This will be quick.
The evidence makes this a bit hard to believe. Like the sole fact that this guy took the price of a cardboard sign out of Arthur's paycheck, which he got jumped for, mind you.
Because I got jumped. Didn't you hear?
Definitely gives Hoyt the Greed Sinner medal. But to be honest, we can hardly blame him for firing Arthur over the whole bringing a gun to a children's hospital thing. Come on. But now it's time to get to the really bad characters. These are the guys who will really make you want to paint your face and say, society. This is the bad and evil section. And first up, we have to mention the delinquent kids, who jumped Arthur for a sign near the beginning of the movie. They proceeded to flee from Arthur in an alleyway, and rather than just dropping the sign and running, they proceeded to beat him up. But those kids should probably count their lucky stars that they didn't run into Arthur later on, like the Wall Street guys did. With the drunken frat bro personalities, it shouldn't be surprising that these three get the Pride Center medal. They shamelessly catcall a random lady on the subway and insult her when she reasonably distances herself from the situation. They also give Arthur absolutely no chance to explain his hysterical laughter, showing a lack of sympathy on their parts. Further still, I think that shows that these guys were just itching to start a fight. Joker wasn't right to kill them, but he was right to call them awful. Next up are the prison guards from Joker 2. As time goes on in the movie, we see them abuse their prisoners more and more. From throwing them into solitary confinement for weeks at a time, to tossing them around, to doing whatever the hell they did to Arthur in that one scene. And with that, it's finally time to talk about Joker, formerly known as Arthur Fleck. This iteration of Joker is a classic example of how a character being sympathetic doesn't mean he's justified.
All I have are negative thoughts.
From a very young age, Arthur Fleck suffered all sorts of abuse from his adoptive mother's boyfriend.
Your son was found tied to a radiator in your filthy apartment.
Which his mother did absolutely nothing to stop, by the way. This abuse gave way to his laughing condition, and furthermore led to his eventual descent into madness. When he's assaulted on the subway, he finally snaps and murders the 3 Wall Street guys. And although he could have started to justify this as self-defense, even when one of them flees in absolute terror, Arthur chases him on foot and murders him, showing that he had more in mind than just self-defense. For his origin and motives, we give Joker both the Wrath Sinner Medal and also the Envy Sinner Medal. Not only does Joker seek vengeance on the society that wronged him, he deeply envies those who are beloved, like Murray Franklin. He commits even more atrocities throughout the film, from his hospitalized mother to the brutal bludgeoning of Randall, right in front of our boy Gary, by the way, and ultimately the murder of Murray Franklin. Still, Joker has sympathetic qualities, or rather, Arthur does. Aside from the obvious factor of his mental illnesses, there is the fact that he seems to have a soft spot for kids. As mentioned earlier, he spared Sophie, which might have been in part due to her being a single mom. And he does seem to enjoy making kids laugh. He also won't kill people whom he doesn't perceive as having hurt him, shown by the fact that he also spared Gary. But the next spot goes to another former co-worker of Joker's, Randall. In a film like Joker, there's always going to be some debate as to which characters are more good or more evil. As a result, Randall might seem like an odd choice to put above the titular Joker, since he isn't a murderer or seemingly even a criminal. He's just a workplace bully. But, well, that's the thing. Randall seems to have no genuine sympathy towards others, yet he acts like he does. When he gives Arthur a gun under the guise of giving him a means to defend himself, he lies to Hoyt and says that Joker tried to buy a .38 off him.
No one has to know, and you can pay me back some other time. You know you're my boy.
Thus tightening the already airtight case for his termination. That's bad enough, but he's also incredibly two-faced. When it's convenient for Randall, like say when he needs to make sure their stories to law enforcement line up, then Arthur is his boy all of a sudden. That doesn't even mention his constant insults towards Gary, which don't seem to be done in a playful manner.
You know what I've always wondered?
No, Ajay.
Do you people call it miniature golf, or is it just golf to you?
Now, this is probably going to be a bit controversial, but we're giving the Bronze Medal of Evil to the sequel's co-star, Lee Quinzel, or Harley Quinn, or Lady Gaga, whichever nickname you prefer, really. For all the things Joker 2 did so wrong, it had an interesting take on Harley. One that makes her, in a pretty shocking twist, even worse than Joker in terms of morality. When she sees all the horrific crimes Joker commits, she falls for him instantly and starts doing everything she can to worm her way into his life. At first, she lies to Joker about her father committing her to an institution, when in reality, she committed herself as the result of her obsession with Joker. These lies to get into Joker's pants, life, are frequent for her. I guess you could argue that Lee technically hasn't killed anyone, to our knowledge at least, but she is an arsonist, which means she's willing to risk others' lives constantly for her own pleasure. That's not even getting into her twisted love for Joker. Admiring a murderer is bad enough already, but to encourage said murderer to stop taking his medication and get back to doing crimes just so she could get her rocks off is both a clear-cut ticket to the Lust Sinner Medal, and also leads to an even bigger reason for us to discredit her when she decides to completely abandon Joker once he decides to abandon the Joker moniker. The Silver Medal of Evil goes to Joker's adoptive mother, Penny Fleck. This woman would French kiss the ground that Thomas Wayne walked on, and this unreciprocated delusional crush of hers would lead to her becoming a truly depraved individual.
Because Thomas Wayne is a good man. If he knew how we were living, if he saw this place, it would make him sick.
While she, like Joker, has a plea of mental instability, with her being diagnosed with psychosis and narcissistic personality disorder. But these disorders led to her doing horrific things, such as adopting Arthur for the sole reason of getting welfare from the government. She'd also lie to him throughout his entire life, well into adulthood, using him as a free caretaker, belittling his pursuit of comedy, and worst of all, being partially responsible for his descent into madness. When Arthur was taken at a young age, he was found tied to a radiator and brutally beaten, which she did absolutely nothing to stop. And the sequel confirmed that Penny apparently badmouthed Joker behind his back, calling his laugh stupid and further insulting his career choice. Penny Fleck was an absolute monster, but in a very tiny defense of her, she wasn't right in the head. Which brings us to the Gold Medal of Evil, which has to go to a character who's never shown on screen, Penny's former boyfriend. Physical abuse of a child is a surefire way to the bottom of most good to evil rankings.
Your son was found tied to a radiator in your filthy apartment.
Plus, this nameless monster is responsible for Arthur becoming Joker. So basically, this twisted, unknown guy is more than worthy of the Gold Medal of Evil.